we're
Okay.
rolling. So, Emily, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Can
Thanks
you
for having me.
can you tell me and everyone who you are and what you do?
Ooh, hard questions right off the bat. I am Emily Wolfe. I am a leadership coach, a group facilitator, and a strategist. I help people think critically, articulate themselves, and work together better.
I'm going to start with facilitator. How do you define what that is and what is that type of thing?
Right. Working, typically, I think of it as working with groups and helping elevate the intelligence of a group. So there's a lot of wisdom in a group of people. And so helping them structure their conversations, structure their thinking in different ways so that they can bring that out and hear each other differently. And that can sometimes be with just one individual. So facilitating them in a way that they can hear themselves differently or look at things they already know from a different angle.
So you're kind of creating an environment for maybe a different level of thinking or different avenue of thinking. Is that
Yes.
in a way,
Yes.
is that
Yeah. One of the things that we say I do a lot of work with a lineage called clean language, which is not about not swearing. It's about knowing what you're up to and asking certain kinds of questions and creating conditions where that intelligence can come out and you're only bringing in your opinion or your lens in a way that you're aware of. And if you so choose, you can bring in much less of it. And so, yeah, we say a lot of, in that world, we say creating the conditions for change.
yeah, I hear that term thrown around a lot, and I guess I've only had a little bit of a vague understanding of facilitator or facilitation. And that's the concept that I'm sort of coming up with is you're creating a space. I mean, I guess every environment can create the space for great expansive possibilities and conversation or the opposite.
I mean, I think if you go to the root of the word facilitator, it's facile, so ease, to make easy. So literally, it could just be someone who's making it easier to have conversations, um, facilitating decisions. It's more a process kind of a thing. And so, as I was saying in conversation with someone earlier today, who we were talking about potential engagement, and they were like, "Well, we'll figure out what it is, and hopefully by the next time we talk, we know what we want to do." And I'm like, "No, that's when you bring me in. Is when there's a seed of an idea or a bunch of different seeds, and you're going, well, what do we actually want to create, and what is really important to us, and who's our audience, and how could we create that in a way that whether it's an event or a facilitated workshop or a conversation or whatever it is that they're creating. How do you create something that creates that, gets you to that outcome in a way that embodies your values and feels true to you?"
Okay. I think I've got a pretty good understanding of what it means.
I think examples will probably be better at some point. So
So how do you end up in this type of position in life? Where does the journey start that gets you here?
hmm.
Vermont, right?
I grew up in, ooh,
Okay.
nice. I am also a very high context person, so thanks for going back a ways. I grew up in Vermont. I lived there until I was almost 16 and went to college in Colorado and studied English. I studied everything you could possibly study. I was like a kid in a candy store. I went to a school where Colorado College, you take one class at a time for 3.5 weeks and then you have 4 days off. And I'd go into the registry. You had to choose your class on like day 3. And I'd take 3 classes and then I'd go, okay, I'm going to pick one. And the registrar they'd go, oh, here she comes again. Because I was just interested in everything. And then eventually, early on in my junior year, I took it was on day 3 and I had taken a geology class and I don't remember what else. Maybe it was day 2. I walked into a creative fiction writing class with a professor called Jim Yaffe. He wrote mystery novels and he was sort of the only like traditional kind of old school professor that I ever had when you think of like the tweed and the gray hair. And he was like this old man who kind of talked like this, but he was just so dynamic and fascinating to me. We'd write stories. He'd give us prompts, we'd write stories, and we'd go to class, and he would just read them to us. And he was such a good reader that everyone's stories were magnificent. and we were in a sorority like common room, and I would lie in this window seat. Also, he had us have everyone had to bring cookies, and so we had cookies and coffee at break every day, and we had to have emergency cookies in case someone forgot their cookies. And I just fell in love with it, with writing, with storytelling, with language. And not that I was not already in love with it. My mother was an English teacher and taught grammar. And that was, I think, probably one of the main waypoints along the way, though. I became a writer, I guess, then and there, or already was a writer. I don't know. But I've been a writer my whole life. And I wrote lots of things. And so I, did lots of jobs to have fodder for my writing, washing dishes and working on a roof and ski patrolling and trail crew and etc. And eventually I got good enough that people would be like, will you write this bloody blah for us, website copy or such and such, when I was also doing work as a journalist. And I'd go, well, why do you want that brochure? Do you have a marketing plan? Do you have a business plan? Do you have, like, who's your audience? What's your business strategy? So I was at that point writing a lot of profiles and working with business leaders. And I was pretty comfortable with the visionary, sort of, my mother played the visionary whisperer role. And I knew that I could slide right in there, and ended up doing quite a bit of strategy. And somewhere in there, it was like, hey, I think we should create a leadership retreat, one of my long-term clients. And the first year I sort of stood up and did a presentation. And it was cool, about something that we needed, everyone to know. And I was like, I got to up my game here. And I went and got facilitation training and just started using it everywhere I could, and was totally obsessed. To me, it seemed a lot like journalism done live. Like you're going, hey, 5 sources, 50 sources for this story, people in the room. What do you all think in relation to this prompt? How do we figure out what we think together?
That makes a lot of sense. And I've been on that journey as a business owner. When you think of copy for anything, and depending on, who you're working with, my fiance is a brand strategist, and it's kind of opened me up to a whole nother world. Because
Say more, yeah.
I mean, you realize who you're talking to, what are you trying to say to them? What are you trying to articulate? What's the values that you are trying to embody? And I feel like that's just the beginning of it, but it could be the most, the first day it could be like, I have something to sell and I need to tell people about it. So I want to write this copy on my website, on my brochures. And then I feel like you could go 100 miles deep and kind of understand why, and then understand why your clients using your product, et cetera, et cetera. And I've just grown an appreciation for thoughtful and intentional copy and all that kind of stuff.
So I'm so interested in this podcast as an embodiment of your business, because I think it's really cool. And I'm also like wondering how you connect the dots, how it makes sense to grow your business by growing a community here.
Yeah. I guess the quick, I mean, I didn't realize it was all happening until it was more hindsight. But when I started the chauffeur service and driving clients around local or traveling, I started talking, building these connections. And then as I phased out of that, I realized I'd missed that conversation, that community connection, and somehow found a way to weave in a podcast that makes no sense for the chauffeur company, but they're all per se under the same umbrella. But I just found a different way to do what I was most passionate about, which was connecting with humans, sharing stories, hearing stories, connecting the different people in this community and state. And it all makes more sense now than it did.
So it came from you driving in cars with people, having conversations.
Yeah.
I've listened to, I said I'm high context. I've listened to a lot of episodes, I don't know, 10 plus. And you're really good at asking questions and being with people. And I was like, that didn't come from just starting a podcast 2 years ago. Like, that is something he's been doing for a while, was what I was reading.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's accumulated over the years quite a bit, but it's amusing to me and people who grew up with me, the shyest, quietest, introverted kid you would meet. So I probably had 1,000 questions to ask and 10,000 hours to think about them. before I had the courage to ask him. And now here I am doing that.
Can I keep asking you questions too?
Sure.
Can we go both
I'll
directions?
spin it back on you, but
All
yeah.
right. Yeah. So was there a moment for you where you were like, all the questions, I'm going to start asking them? Do you remember that?
No, I think it was a gradual buildup. There was just no
You just started driving and
yeah.
started asking them.
Hmm.
Mm.
And when I started podcasting, I started with a buddy of mine, and it was a big part of the credit I owed him because he did it with me. I don't know if I would have had the courage to start doing it on my own. And I remember being nervous when we were doing the first recordings, and it was friends and family and people we knew. Eventually, you just strengthen the muscle, but it's been a very funny long progression. So it's fun to see it.
So many more questions, but I'll stop here.
Yeah, let's go back to. I wanted to ask you about this. So this gentleman was an English professor.
Jim Yaffe. He
Yeah.
was English and creative writing.
When he would read back anything you wrote, do you think would he ever change anything, or would he read it
No,
exactly as it was written?
exactly.
So he just had an ability to animate and articulate.
Yeah, so much respect too. There's something really, I haven't inquired into this and now I'm really interested. What is it that he did that gave me such a sense of respect for my own work, respect for the others around me? He would do it really slowly. Yeah, like the pacing, just the container as well. The fact that like we take this seriously enough to have emergency cookies means like this work matters. You're learning how to write and think and tell stories matters. And I don't know, he'd been doing it for I don't know, he was probably in his mid 70s, late 70s, and so I can assume a long time. He was a published author, but he took us I don't not too seriously, right? Like they were emergency cookies, but like he took us seriously, and I think that that was a big part of it. So some of it was in the delivery, absolutely, and some of it was just in the whole world that he wove around it.
Yeah, that's impressive to think if he's a very experienced and accomplished writer to not change anything out of respect for what you or a student has written. But it's also very cool to think about the fact that he's animating it and bringing it to life and probably helping expand your potential and the thoughts you thought what you thought was possible just by hearing it
Mm,
presented in that way.
absolutely. And so I mentioned clean language, and we'll probably touch on that quite a bit. Part of even as a journalist, right? Like you don't mess with somebody's quote. You might take out a that and or you might put in or you might put in an ellipses if you remove something. But you're not took it that very seriously, not to mess with what someone said and to not take it out of context, which then made it very hard for me to do that work in a way I could afford to, money or time wise. And clean language is very precise. We do not, if you're doing one of the methodologies, whether it's one-on-one or group work, you use the person's words exactly and you combine it with a set of very process-based questions. I can give you an example later if you want.
Let's do one right now, sure.
But so there's something around exact language that's really important and really honoring of what is inside of someone.
When me and Kyle started the podcast, we did quite a few just me and him talking like this, and we didn't publish a lot of them, thankfully for everyone. We really contemplated and talked about having a counter for like and and those are just two things, but they're kind of fillers. So like this, like that, because we got a little bit exhausted of hearing ourselves do it when we listened back. And one of the reasons we had said we were starting this is we wanted to improve our ability to communicate. But it takes a lot of consciousness and intention and presence to do that. And it's, I don't know, for me, when I watch back or listen back, which isn't a lot, but it's enough, it's like sometimes it's like watching the unconscious version of myself. And it's interesting.
What are you learning right now about watching that?
I mean, I'm just seeing things I'm doing or saying or body language or things that I might just embody them unconsciously a lot of the time. And then to see yourself kind of outside of yourself it's a little bit trippy.
there's a laptop in front of you. Is there a video that's pointed at you?
Yeah, it pointed at both of us. And
Oh,
I don't look at, I mean, this is just here because I'm producing and recording.
hmm.
So I'll take a peek every once in a while and, yep, everything's good. That's the only reason it's here. Otherwise, I think if I had a little more faith in if I had a little more faith in my equipment, I would just leave it.
Hmm.
And I did do one not long ago without the laptop here because I forgot it. Because it's actually on that laptop is where it's recording. And this is just the producer hub
There's the video camera.
right there.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah.
right in front of me.
Yeah, yeah.
The things we don't see.
But anyway, that's been very interesting and continues to be an
Do
interesting
you
experience.
edit the show? Do you cut the likes on the ands and the ums out?
No. And I learned early on and when I started using this technology to produce this is there's some AI editors and it will take out pauses, it can take out ums and it sounds great, cool. It actually ruins half the conversation because you can kind of feel the authenticity in just the conversation.
Hmm.
And when it's skipped out, something feels weird. You're like, why doesn't this, I wouldn't talk like this. It's kind of like you're a writer, so I'm speaking way more your language than mine. But I don't know. Have you seen when people write in a way that nobody would ever talk? And it seems
I don't write how I talk.
you don't.
So no, some people write how they talk, and I'm definitely jealous of them. A lot of photographers write how they talk.
Interesting.
I do not. I'm like delete, delete, delete. I'm a person who, like, you put all of the stuff down, and then I move it around until it's in order. Like I gather tons of information, map, 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 put it all down, dump it the drawer out, and then move it around. And this is also how I coach and facilitate largely too. And then move it around and go like look at it all and just go, oh, what do we have here? Organize it, sort it into different categories, and then delete, 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 delete until, oftentimes I was on a word count. And so how much can you delete? And so it ends up being fairly terse. A lot of the writing I've done, and I don't talk that way. I'm a verbal processor. It would be amazing if I could talk. Actually, I'd rather talk the way I write than write the way I talk.
That is the exact question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a desire to talk the way you write?
Sure. But that is, I'm loath to even call myself a writer anymore. I guess I've been doing it my whole life, so I shouldn't say I'm not. And it's so hard the way that I do it. It's an enormous amount of work, and I would normally do it like in the middle of the night, starting at the 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. shift when I was on a big project. And wasn't like, never really truly figured out how to make a living at it. So it was like my journalism or writing habit. And then I would do other things to make a living during the day. And I don't want to have to prepare for my thinking that much. And also, like, just part of it's how I am. Like, I'm a person who carries many, many strands at once. And they're all, like, for me, it's very structural how I think. Like, it's this woven, interconnected, looping, I'm making a spiral with my hands way of thinking. And it doesn't work for everyone. And it's how I learn and think.
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought about this in this way, so I'm appreciating it. These episodes, I guess in some way I would say, are basically just continual rough drafts.
Say more.
They're not a finished product because there's not really it's there's not really many boundaries on what it will be. So it will just be a conversation to go back to where I started when I'm driving a client somewhere, to Big Sky, to West Yellowstone, into the park, and they're sharing some story about their life and how they got here, and that's all it is kind of a open-ended conversation.
And is it also you flexing the muscle?
Flexing.
You talked about a muscle that you were building.
I think the real muscle is listening.
Mm.
I think that's the only reason, if I'd even say that I ask good questions, but I would say it just has to do with listening, which doesn't seem like what you would think is how you would develop the ability to ask good questions.
Okay, you said you wanted to do a little bit of clean. Let's do a little bit.
Okay.
So listening, when it's going really well for you, it's something you need to do when you're at work, probably when you're at home, when you're on this podcast. It's a really important tool. And it sounds like it's something that you need to do to ask good questions. When listening is going really well for you, think of a time that it was.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a little bit like what?
I mean, it's just quiet. It's calm. It's a lack of distraction.
It's quiet. It's calm. It's a lack of distraction. And is there anything else about that quiet?
Can you elaborate?
So I'm just doing the thing right now, and there's no wrong answer. Including if there's no answer.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this as much. Okay, I would probably say an absence of thought.
Absence of thought.
Yeah.
Quiet, calm, and absence of thought. What kind of calm?
I don't know, just peaceful, quiet.
Whereabouts is that peaceful, quiet, calm?
In my nervous system, in my body.
In my nervous system, in my body. And then what happens when you have that peaceful, quiet, calm?
I'm able to listen and then ask questions that are relevant. And ultimately, that, in my experience, has cultivated a better connection.
Listen, ask questions that are relevant. And in your experience, it's cultivated a better connection.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know a little bit more about you and what listening is like for you and what you need and what it creates. And I think you might, I don't know, what was that like for you?
What was?
Me asking those questions. What are those questions? Let's change. What do those questions do?
I mean, they provoke more thought and a little bit of intrigue because I haven't thought as deeply about this.
And I was also repeating back your exact words.
The words that I was using.
Yeah, I don't think I added any extras. We'll have to go back and listen.
Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show. Yeah.
What does that do?
That creates even more intrigue. The way I've thought about it or realized, because I'll have I might do a couple of these recordings in a day sometimes. The most I've done is 3 in a day. And this is kind of profound to me because I've talked with quite a few different mental health counselors, and they will sit down with maybe 8 different people in a day. If they work, if they do the, 8 to 5 day, that's 8 set. And that kind of blows my mind because it's a lot to have 3. I'd almost say I don't like to do it, but I do like to do it. It's a lot, but I am more energized after, which is, you would think that it might be the opposite, but I think kind of back to answering your questions is it gets me into that place where my mind's not thinking about 1,000 things. There's some focus and some calmness, and that the result of that ends up being more energy and rest. Rather than, I'm bouncing around in my head, in my nervous system, thinking about 20 things I need to do and 20 different problems. And maybe even efficiency is the word I would use.
So these questions can help us model you or model whatever it is that we're interested in. So like going, okay, and we just did it in a fairly light way, but we could go further and go, okay, well, what helps create this kind of calm, quiet space? and learn more about what protects it, what would get you out of it. And then it's something that you can get yourself into. It's something I could go, ooh, I want to try that on. Hearing about listening from one of my mentors actually fairly recently, she talked about, because it's, if I'm going to repeat someone's words that exactly, I need to be listening in a different way. And so she talked, and she modeled herself enough that I could kind of try it on like a different hat or something, about how she doesn't make up very much about what that person's saying. She just sees the words out in front of her. And so that she can go, okay, I want to know more about this one and more about that one. And it's something she's really cultivated. And that was really helpful for me when I'm trying to facilitate a larger group, instead of, because I'm having to track what everyone's doing in the room and the different energy and how they're interacting and what I'm up to. And the less I make up about what someone means, and the more I just go, oh, okay, they said this thing. Let's find out. Let's find out what it means. The less processing I'm having to do as I carry all of that stuff around. So this is actually a tool for not only finding out what's going on with someone, but also finding out how much we, as humans, all of us, are making meaning all day long, and how often we might not get it exactly right. And we get a chance to then, if we ask clarifying questions, update our model.
So are you saying you're a little bit impartial to what they're saying?
I mean, I'm not. None of us ever are. And when we ask these questions, we find out where our biases and our assumptions are. As a facilitator, it's your job to know what your biases and assumptions are in the room, and then choose when to bring them in or choose when to be more impartial. I mean, we talked about in journalism, being impartial, but just choosing to write a story about one thing and not another, choosing to include one quote and not another, you're never actually impartial.
So it's more maybe about the awareness of what you're partial towards.
For me, I mean, it does a lot, but that's one of the things that it helps you with, is self-awareness. And in coaching, I was just listening with another mentor this morning back to a transcript, sort of like you might do if you're in sports and watching game tape. And we were looking at when I stopped being very specifically clean and started going, hey, okay, I see a pattern here. May I share it with you? I'd like to offer this and get interested in what's up here. And so looking at that and going, what am I filtering for? And one of the things I filter for is this person carrying a lot? Are they over functioning, or, sort of translating for everyone around them and absorbing a lot? And sure, that might be a lovely thing to bring to someone and help them work through and help them delegate or whatever. But I filter for that a lot. And part of that is because I do that. And I need to know that that's the thing I'm filtering for. So I'm not leaping in and rescuing someone who's not asking for help with that. So yeah, it then becomes about self-awareness, basically.
Yeah, because I guess that's easy to do. I can speak for myself, is you kind of assume that everyone else must have the same, the same pinch points that you do, or the same types of things. When you are with this, if you're facilitating or working with a larger group, is this generally something that takes a lot from you or energizes you, or a mix of both?
Because that might be something that you filter for. I've heard you say that these conversations actually energize you. Okay. It totally depends on the group and what we're working on. And same with individuals, because if I'm working with a group, I'll always be also working with individuals, whether it's working with the leaders ahead of time and after, or doing interviews with everyone who's coming ahead of time, etc. And I also just work one-on-one with some folks. So really, it depends on the person. If I think about my qualifiers for who I'm going to work with, there's a lot of them. My time, is it a project I want to work on? Are our values aligned? Is it something I'm really good at and can add value? But the top one is vibe. We're going to work on hard stuff. Things are going to happen. We're human beings. We're going to have to learn and develop skills to work through them together, regardless of if I'm a coach for one individual or if I'm coaching them through something in their organization or if I'm working with them as a system, I want to make sure that I get to walk in and go, yeah, I get to go see Tim today. Like, that's cool. And I mean, I did that by listening to 10 plus episodes, go like, yeah, I want to hang out with this guy. He has good questions. I'm really curious what he's up to. I don't want to be like, oh, I have to go work with that person today. So I can be completely exhausted after a really high stakes, challenging group facilitation. Certainly. And probably as I get better and better and better, I can do less work and like work less hard and lean into my strengths more. And it's still totally energizing when you do a great job and you help people and they become better versions of themselves or say something brave or whatever happens, or the hard, crazy thing comes out and now it's on the table and we get to work through it, or they developed a new strategy, whatever the thing is that they're aiming for, they finally figured out what it is. I love that. It's awesome. It's definitely energizing.
And I'd imagine because you're using this filter of who you will work with and who you won't, that a better version of yourself is able to show up when you're a little bit more intentional about who that is. I'd imagine if you're the context walking into is, damn it, I really don't want to go to this today. It's gonna, like, the results just aren't gonna compare to, I'm so excited to go have this conversation.
I am a really bad faker, so that wouldn't last very long.
Yeah, I've realized that in myself and had it said to me that my face doesn't lie. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Depends on the situation. But it does, like, it just, it's too honest sometimes. I mean, sometimes honest, like, too honest for its own good. I don't know, but I feel you there.
Hmm.
That
Now I'm trying to read your face.
now let me overthink about it a lot.
You look up there a lot. Is that a place you go? I'm making up that that's where you go when you're thinking.
No, and I've talked about this with people, and I don't know what the jury is on it, but I love and do make eye contact with people. When I'm thinking it is most beneficial for me to look up. I'm not looking at anything. I'm like that's my internal gaze.
I actually think when you're thinking, you look up, and when you're looking up and right, I think you're listening. You just did it.
Oh, interesting.
That's you listen over there.
Yeah. Which I don't. I've gotten feedback on it, like from varying people, and I would say it's probably a little different depending on the person. Because how am I listening and why? There's still a lot I'm trying to understand about.
Do you have different kinds of listening?
Probably. As I was kind of saying, I think there's still a lot I'm trying to understand about myself.
Mm-hmm.
You were just making me think as I asked that question to you. Yeah, generally this will energize me, these types of conversations. I've gone to some big events and they exhaust me, some worse than others.
What kinds of big events?
Almost any of them. But like a sporting event, especially if I enjoy the sport, energizes me. A really big social event, to be more specific.
So what if you're at a really big social event? This is not a non-biased question. What if you're at a big social event and you meet someone really interesting and you're like off in the corner having a one-on-one? Then what happens?
Yeah, I try to look for that more or be open to that because I almost walk into the social event and I'm like, damn it, this is going to exhaust me. Now here's 50 people I'll say hello to and we'll exchange pleasantries about what I'm up to and what they're up to. And it just seems like it's kind of over and over again.
It's so different than driving a car with someone sitting next to you or sitting behind you and being able to have space to look out the window, or the structure of I just got off a plane, or I'm going to such and such, and you have a little bit of structure to talk about and you can kind of feel their energy, but it's okay and I'm just imagining what it might have been when you were driving. And there's a certain amount of time that you're going to be in the car together that gives you the container, and you're also the one driving the car. So you get to kind of set the tone and sense how much they want to talk and how much they don't, and what would be right for them. And the roles are there's something really, from my system at least, around like established roles and knowing like, okay, I'm the facilitator or the coach, or I'm not in this situation. And so I know how I'm sort of expected to show up or what my choices are in that moment. And for me, I like in larger social events, they can be really, really taxing for me as well. I like to go deep as well. And I'm assuming that you do because you have these conversations. So I don't know. Don't let me say that if it's not true about you. But it's, I don't think that that social events, I'm just picturing some I've been to in the last few years, I don't do as well with sort of the expected role there of like walking around, engaging really lightly with people.
Before we keep rolling with today's episodes, I want to tell you about someone who changed how we show up as a business. When clients land on our website, we hear the same thing over and over. It just feels right. Amy of Unbridled Form asked us questions we'd never thought to ask ourselves, helped us figure out the deeper identity underneath our services, and translated that into a brand world we're genuinely proud of. Our ongoing partnership is easily one of the best investments we've made. Learn more at unbridledform.com. Now back to the show. Yeah, I haven't thought about it like this, and I'm appreciating thinking about it this way. Even when in that role of driving, the eye contact is very different because hopefully the driver's focusing on the road, but there could be rear view mirror if they're in the back seat and there's an occasional glance over. But there's a few moments I did remember in those situations where you get out and then you're standing in front of this person looking them in the mirror and shake their hand like, hey, it was great talking to you. And it's kind of funny. It's like there's a moment of more profound eye contact at the end of this interaction. It would make it a little bit harder to remember the whole conversation as well without that more back and forth, or at least associate the person with the conversation.
So the eye contact makes it easier to remember it or harder to remember it?
Easier, in my experience.
It's like some sort of closure.
Yeah.
I was thinking of my good friend that I worked on Yosemite search and rescue with in Tuolumne Meadows, the high country of Yosemite, like, oh gosh, a long time ago, nearly 20 years ago for a summer. And he was deaf in his right ear, and we were driving down to climb in the High Sierra outside of Bishop. And he was so attentive of a human, but every time he was driving his old Subaru, and every time he would want to listen to me, he would just turn his entire head so that his left ear that could hear me. And I'm like, stop driving facing backwards. Oh, yeah. These things that like, whether it's something in our health or a job that we did, I think they can have really profound effects on like how we learn to show up and learn to interact, like different structural things that we grow up with.
Yeah, my upbringing, it'll be hard to connect the correlation of that and what I do now. Maybe, yeah. It's just, I was like in a very isolated area with very minimal socialization.
You grew up on a farm and you're homeschooled,
Yeah.
dairy farm.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it again? What state?
Upstate New York.
Oh, you're upstate New York.
Yeah.
Where?
Hudson Valley.
Okay, so like sort of northish of the city, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, between Albany and the city.
Okay.
Yep.
I climbed in the Shawanggunks once, or a few times. It's like New Paltz. It's north of there.
Yeah, that's across the Hudson River.
Okay. It's pretty down there.
Yeah, it's a nice area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, unless there's a connection between being around animals a lot, but I don't know that would.
I mean, I think about my father-in-law who ran the horseshoeing school at MSU for 30 years, and he's incredible, like at watching human beings and understanding animal behavior. Like he pays really close attention because he's been around horses and mules and donkeys and other animals so much. And humans are just animals doing animal behavior in whatever setting we're in,
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that growing up around animals would affect the way that you listen and pay attention and that the way that your nervous system responds.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it.
Just a wild guess.
We got slightly off track.
Oh yeah, where do you want to go?
So you were in school with this professor. This is in Colorado.
Colorado Springs.
Where does your life take you from there?
I graduated 2 years later, and I had broken my ankle in a climbing fall not long before graduating and got a cast boot and then promptly started climbing in a cast boot. And then went home to Vermont and got a landscaping job. And my ankle wasn't very happy with me, but kept climbing and eventually made like enough cash that I could move into the truck that I had, this old Ford Ranger, and go back to the west and went to a place called Indian Creek south of Moab. That was is a mecca for crack climbing. And I wanted to get a lot better at crack climbing. So I spent the fall there and then sort of spent a few years wandering around looking for a place to live, working random jobs, ski bumming, climbing, going to some of these places that I really wanted to climb and had heard of in college while I was learning to climb in Colorado. Eventually, 2005, I kept not finding places and kept driving home to Vermont. And my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm going to move to Alaska. And she said, I think you should move to Bozeman. They had been here the year before I was born and had gone backpacking north of Big Sky in Bear Basin when the road was dirt and there was no guardrail, that sort of thing. And she had always loved the West and I think knew that me with my seasonal affective disorder would not be that happy in Alaska. And so I moved here and drove across the country through Albany in a 2-day push. It was a -20 and I was with a friend and we slept in the back of my truck in a ski area parking lot in Wisconsin. And it was like sheet ice the whole way out. North Dakota. Were we in North Dakota? I think we were. And I've kind of lived here ever since.
You were making me think when I lived in Washington before I lived in Montana, Washington State.
Mm.
The first night I slept in my truck in Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin, because I knew Madison because it was a hub where we used to go to a cow show that happened there every year. And I literally went to this essentially like event center.
Where the cow show was?
Yeah, in Madison.
This is like I knew skiing, so I was like, I know you can sleep in the area parking lot. You slept in the cow show parking lot.
Yeah,
what happens at a cow show?
That's a whole world.
I'm sure.
But you're essentially showing this cow, and depending on how well she does, and you can go all over the world and do this, and
with your same cow.
Yeah, or your herd of cows. You can have many, and their genetics are what you're selling.
So you're not selling the one animal.
You could, because she could be the mother, or she is related to this line of cows that could be the top producing cow for your cow herd.
What time of year was it when you were camping in Madison in the parking lot?
What would that have been? Like April, May? It was like it could have been colder, but it wasn't.
You were more strategic than me.
Yeah. Not that strategic, but yeah.
Better than December. I think it was January 2nd or something.
No, I got caught in a few snowstorms going from the east to the west, so I wasn't that strategic.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually broke down in Big Timber the next day.
Oh.
And then limped to Bozeman.
That's a long push, Madison to Big Timber.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I got you to 2005.
So you've been here.
I landed here.
You've been here over 20 years. Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about? You pick.
What did you start doing when you got here?
I applied for a bunch of jobs that I didn't get. And I baked cookies and made coffee and hot chocolate and sold them off of my tailgate at the Turnoff to Bridger Bowl. At which point someone who I went to college with pulled up at 2 p.m. to buy a cookie and was like, I did this last year. Don't think you're the first college graduate to do this. Until I got a job washing dishes at Dave's Sushi and a job baking muffins and making coffees at what was then Sweet Pea Bakery and Restaurant. And I did that for a little while and skied a bunch and then got a job doing wilderness therapy and also like some of the leadership programming with the same company called what was then called Three Rivers. And I did that for a little while until I got a job ski patrolling at Moonlight Basin. I did that for 5 winters professionally and then 1 volunteer winter afterwards. and did a whole bunch of different things in the summers, kind of built around me getting to climb and write. And I was then trying to write for mostly glossy magazines, and mostly I knew editors through climbing and skiing. So that's the magazines I would write for.
Can I go all the way back to your professor with the cookies? Because you told me you were
Oh, yeah.
selling cookies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I never made that connection.
Why? What?
What's
Why?
up with the cookies?
What was the emphasis with the cookies in the English class?
I don't know, but I'm really interested in what they did. I think that was some of the container. He must have also just liked cookies, but it was something in facilitation and coaching. And we talk about creating a container, the same as like when I come here, you've done things to set the stage. You've like written emails to me to let me know what to expect. And you've got walls that are a certain way, etc. All sorts of things go into creating the experience. And I don't know, we would have had to have asked him what he was doing and what his intentions were. But I think having that, it was a way to connect over the snack break. It was funny. So it was sort of like an icebreakerish kind of a thing. I think he just legitimately liked them. And I mean, it's sort of like a welcoming thing.
Yeah, I found that in some circumstances, I'll ask a question like that, and there'll be a deep, elaborate
Mm.
explanation for what it creates, and then some people will say, "I don't, I just like cookies." So it's kind of funny what we'll do consciously and unconsciously in those types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll put the cookies to
I
rest
mean,
now.
but like some words are just fun to say, like sandwiches and cookies. Like sometimes it's just fun. I don't know. We do a lot of things consciously and unconsciously in conversation to move someone's attention around, to change the energy in a room. And those things, words like that are, I don't think, sandwich also just has good mouth feel. Sorry, that's a terrible pun, but like it's a fun word to say.
Did you say Three Rivers was the?
It was the name of a wilderness therapy outfit based off Dry Creek Road, north of here.
And what was that kind of work that you were doing?
I started out working for their wilderness leadership program. Uh, that it was like, I think they were actually all boys. I did 3 2-week trips and teenage boys and a co-leader. We went into the whitetail range between here and Butte. It was like forested downfall, boulders, mosquitoes, like full mosquito gators and bug nets the whole time. And then I had a group of older teenagers in the Spanish Peaks in like high wildflower season. It was incredible in July. And another group that was in the highlight range, and really got to see a lot of the country and around here, and to find a lot of like the mountain travel that I later wanted to do and did on my skis. And I mean, I still use tools that I learned then after that in the wilderness therapy work, where we were, in the snow in the winter with just tarps, and the kids would make fire with their bow drills. And if they didn't get a fire, then they ate cold food. I used some of the tools and ideas that I learned in the not very long handful of months that I worked there, September to through December or something, in my work today, really.
And this, what is this therapy? You know, what is trying to be achieved there? What are they? You know, who are these people in these groups?
Kids who are having a hard time getting along with their parents or doing things that their parents think aren't healthy. And sometimes they get, it's called gooned. They get grabbed and taken away. I think their parents are there when they get taken away, but they don't know what's happening. And other kids, they're like, hey, we think this would really help you. I had actually gone to boarding school. My parents and I weren't seeing eye to eye, and I had gone to boarding school for 2 years in the woods in Maine. And it was not a wilderness therapy school, but we would have done well to have some of those tools there for sure. And kids did amazing things. I mean, kids that are just like out there for months and months at a time, their bodies would get so adjusted to the cold that, I mean, they'd be in like a sweater and it's -10 and they're totally fine.
Yeah, that theme comes up a lot in me doing these interviews and this type of stuff is what nature can do for a various amount of different things. And I mean, I think that's maybe I'll turn this into a question for you. Do you think that's what draws so many people to this city or this area?
Mm. What draws people to this city or this area? I mean, I came here because there were bigger mountains and better weather than in Vermont, and I think that why else would you come here? I
Yeah.
don't know. We'd have to ask each person.
Yeah.
I mean, I stayed here in part because the person who became my husband grew up here and was connected here, and his family's here. There's lots of beautiful places with mountains and rivers.
Yeah. I don't like this one seems different, and I'm biased because I've lived here for, I guess, coming on 8-ish years. But I don't know. I've like, and I said this early on when I moved here. This was the first place I came, and then the first time I really came here was 2010. But when I moved here, this was the first place I moved where I didn't think about where I'd want to move next.
What got you to move here?
I just liked it was my third time coming here. That was my sister's wedding, and I joked with them with my now brother-in-law and sister. If I go back there one more time, I would move there. And then I came back here, and then I put in my notice and moved there 6 weeks later.
Where were you moving from?
Washington.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you in a small kind of a town like this or somewhere else?
I was like, I don't know what the population is there, but I was on Bainbridge Island,
Mm.
which is west of Seattle, Washington. It's a pretty small community. I think it's smaller than this, but it's kind of connected to that huge city. But you had to go across the peninsula to get there. So yeah, it was a cool small community, but the average age was like 65.
What were you doing there?
I was working construction.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a beautiful place.
Yeah, it was very nice certain times of year.
Mm-hmm.
And even the winters are very mild. It rains, but it rarely gets below 30. So it was a nice spot, but did not feel anything like this.
I think for me now, it's really hard because I can't ski anymore. I had a knee replacement last year and I've been struggling like the last couple of years. Walking was really hard. And I have lots of other orthopedic challenges. And winters are really long when you don't have an outside thing you can do. Summers are amazing. I'm glad I didn't move to Alaska. Thanks, Mom.
Except for last winter was kind
Last winter was the best winter I could have picked to have a knee replacement recovery.
of, I don't know, by February, I was like, this kind of sucks. But at this point, my body is just used to this temperature. So I'm good if we just
Yeah.
ride this out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've noticed that when the season changes, I'll speak for myself. I'll complain about it a little while, and then I have adapted to it.
And you can
Yeah.
get used to anything.
Yeah, and I've got the right boots out, and I'm used
Yeah.
to a certain temperature.
Yeah.
The back and forth gets a little. It's like you're kind of messing with me now.
Yeah. And you ride horses. And what do you do in the winter?
I snowboard, but I don't snowboard a lot. I didn't once last winter,
Yeah.
which was the first time I hadn't in a long time. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I just because I grew up in the winter, I don't think much of it. I'll find something to do. I also almost against my will had to work a lot in the winter, so sometimes I just stay inside and enjoy the modern amenities of humanity.
I mean, it's probably a great thing, right? You've got people coming who want to catch reds.
hmm
Mm.
Yeah,
How many people work for Mountain Mule?
in the peak of our busy season, we had 10. We've got like 6 right now, so it depends on the time of year and what's going on. Yeah,
You were talking about the challenges of keeping folks, I think you switch off with the sprinkler company so you can keep folks gainfully employed and have them come back who are well trained.
no, that I think that is. I think you're thinking of someone I interviewed,
Oh, okay.
Avery,
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah. That was a great one.
Showdown.
Yeah, from
Yeah.
Showdown, the ski area.
But we were having that conversation of
Yeah.
the employment during harsh seasonality.
Yeah, I thought about that because when I ski patrolled, there were different things. People would go do something like that, sprinklers. People would go mountain guide. There were certain things they would swap seasons, and then you'd get an off season.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm kind of undecided, but it's definitely one of the biggest pinch points in a lot of businesses in this part of the country. Or I'll just speak to Gallatin County more specifically because we are essentially, this economy thrives off of tourism, and that is so seasonal.
Yeah, and then for your business to scale up and scale down all the time. My husband's got a metal fabrication business, and I mean, just last night he was like, "Ooh, there's a new guy," and he always seems to have a lot of joy around like having new people in and enjoying getting to know them and where their strengths are. And I think it's also a lot to manage on top of all the other many things to manage where you're running a business with employees.
Yeah. It's pretty, I don't know. It seems like I act surprised every year when the season changes,
Yeah.
but those, those pits or peaks and valleys are pretty extreme sometimes.
Oh,
It's
how
like
many people are on right now?
5,
Okay.
but and just from a sheer volume of work, income, all of the above. And
Uh,
as maybe a serial entrepreneur, and I'm always thinking, because every business is the next great idea except the one you have. But just think like what kind of can ride through those, what can ride that turbulence, and what's more constant. And it's just interesting to look at the different businesses and models in this community.
oh, yeah, because there's a lot to be learned from other seasonal businesses
Yeah,
or yours.
and what ones aren't, like, and or like in Avery's experience, what two complement each other.
Does
Frankly,
anyone who's not visiting hire you?
yeah, mm, yeah. Depending on what they're doing, maybe they're doing a company event and
Okay.
they're here. Maybe they own a home here and they own a home somewhere else, so they're still technically visiting. But it's I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but it's pretty heavily people visiting or people traveling,
Okay.
and that's just logically, why would you hire a car and a driver unless, well, there's many reasons.
I think it's so cool that you're like doing this podcast. Ooh, that's, seemingly unrelated. And yet it's like this clear vehicle for your own personal development. And just listening to like the interview with Andy Lear, I listened to that one twice, and how much you're acting as a leader in our community. Like, it's vulnerable and it's brave. And you're like, what's going to happen next? The same as I'm going to drive to Yellowstone in the spring. Like, what could happen on the drive? I'm going to show up with my skills or go on a hike or whatever it is. Show up with the skills I have as a person I am, present, listening, paying attention, and see what emerges. And, on both the level of individual conversations and also just convening this many humans to have like sort of an ongoing conversations. I can't remember what you said, something about like each one is the next edit.
Yeah,
The
next draft.
next draft. You keep getting better and better and better. I mean, I went back and listened to some of your early ones, and then I went and
I'm sorry.
but they were still like, I told you about listening to the one Matt Skoglund of Northbridge Bison, and then it was in the middle of it, and I got out of my car on Main Street, and he was walked out of a coffee shop, and he was like, "Hey, I know you," and I was like, "And I'm listening to an interview with you right now." Like, it still was really
That's cool.
a valuable thing to listen to, and just watching your growth publicly, like, it's really quite phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, for us as a community, not just as a pat on the back, like it's a good thing for everyone to get to see what a person can do when they put their mind to growing and changing and challenging themselves.
I feel so fortunate. I think of that conversation with Andy Lear, and that was such a great conversation. It's so cool to sit down with someone like that.
Yeah. I'm really interested in meeting him.
I don't know how often in your work, when you're doing this facilitating, coaching, that imposter syndrome comes up. But I will ask myself that.
All the time.
Who the hell am I to sit down with this guy? And to be able to listen to him talk for an hour when he's, spent decades doing this and talked to so many people and spent so much time studying and honing his craft. And the only word I can use is gratitude, because it's so cool to be in that presence.
The imposter syndrome shows up when? Before? During?
Before, during, and after.
After as well?
Just if I'm thinking about
Is it different afterwards?
No, and I will remind myself, and people are kind enough too, that I've done this consistently for enough time that I have enough credibility that I will do this, and this will be a value to the community when it goes out. But I'm still humbled and grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. I watched this show on Nina Totenberg. She's a reporter, an NPR, longtime NPR reporter who focused on the Supreme Court. And she's badass. And it was tracing her family history. And at one point in it, she talks about how she has imposter syndrome. And I'm like, okay. If she has imposter syndrome, it's doing something useful. So for my brain, like as a reporter who had nothing like that kind of experience, to me, it's keeping us honest. It's keeping us skeptical. It's keeping us checking our facts. It's keeping us checking our assumptions and ourselves. It's just like, is it adaptive? Is it maladaptive? If we can be aware of it, we can notice like, oh, hello, old friend, whoever you want to, make friends with it and see when it shows up, what it's doing, and how we can dance with it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's very valuable. Like I think it could go, too far in either direction where it can be crippling and it can take the whole joy out of the experience. But if it's not there and there's too much certainty and confidence, that can, that's not a fun. It's definitely not fun if you're going to produce something that other people are going to listen to.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I don't know if that's the best term for the feeling, but that's the common one I know.
Sure. Yeah, maybe it needs a rebrand.
Yeah.
Let's bring your wife on and rebrand imposter syndrome.
Yeah. She, yeah, it makes me think when we were talking about, big groups and how they can be exhausting and that there's no rules. Something that she says that I love and I try to use a lot is instead of asking people what they do, how do you spend your time? And
That's beautiful.
it can really change a kind of the intro to the conversation and because I don't know, like we, especially in business networking events, we're, talking about what we do professionally and I don't know, it's weird. The concept of networking is still a little weird to me sometimes. It's like, is everyone here to try to like get some connection? And I don't know.
I mean, you can make it whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, let's go for a hike and like see if we can have some fun, or let's have coffee and just listen and get to know each other. And so I've made it something that feels great to me and feels authentic to me, and for someone else, it's going to be a totally different thing.
How about the podcast that you're a host or a co-host of? Where is that at right now? Because you said it was in hibernation. Was that your term?
Yeah, that's actually my co-host. I've been saying it's resting, and
Okay.
I heard him the other day say it's hibernating. We did 2 seasons. We planned it for a very long time, and it's called Food Montana. There's a comma, so as if food is a community in Montana. And I think we just both wanted to try something. We had been curious about a local food fund. So how could we create something that he works in finance and I had been interested in local food. And at the end of my journalism was reporting on local and regional food systems, and organic, and I guess not just local and regional food systems, also larger scale organic and regenerative ag in rural Montana. And was just curious to see how I could stay in that world. And we were looking into a fund, and then we both were like, let's, just dip our toes and do something smaller. And I had this idea that a podcast could be like, you can't advertise a fund. And so I was like, oh, you could have a podcast and it would be just networking, just connecting people and learning who's up to what and kind of brand building for something like that if it ever came to be. And just also really wonderful to get to know different people who are working in local and regional food systems. And we talked to a handful of people and they're doing great work. And we worked with an editor named Ezra Graham, who he started his own podcast when he was in 4th grade, age 9, called News Nerds. You can listen to as his voice changes and he grows into like this incredible interviewer. He interviewed Alice Waters 3 or 4 times and all sorts of different, people you've heard of and people you haven't heard of. And he was our editor for a couple of years until he graduated high school a year early and went off to do great things. Jeremy, my co-host, laughs. He'll say, we should get his autograph. We're going to be like, we know Ezra Graham someday. And it was an honor to get to work with both of them. And when Ezra left and Jeremy, the wife, is now going to have the second child. So, and I already have 2. I'm like, let's take a little break and see if this comes back. It definitely was something that like finally had legs. People were listening to it and reaching out and saying, hey, this is really important. Can we suggest someone on the show? And I think without finding, an easy home for it or easy sponsorship or something like that, I have a habit of creating wonderful, incredible independent projects that are very exhausting for me. And so I love doing it. And, I'm definitely someone who's a builder. And I think I have to just say sometimes you build something and you let it go. Sometimes you build something and someone else's, I created a magazine 15 years ago that, a friend of mine is now an editor for. So sometimes you build something and other people carry it on for you. And I don't know if that will come back or not. It was a really cool opportunity after interviewing people for 20 years as a living to actually do it publicly. And I was super nervous, by the way.
I know I almost laughed at myself, but I know exactly how you feel
Yeah.
because yeah, when it's new, it's just,
In some ways, I don't know if I can't compare if it's worse, but like, okay, I'm brand new. I haven't really done a lot of interviewing. And I'm like, well, in which you weren't because you had been talking to people in the car forever versus like, I've been doing this for a really long time and now everyone's going to see, am I actually any good or not? But it was a treat to get to do.
yeah. There's a couple of people one I know because I know Tim and Kira,
Oh, yeah.
and I have a funny connection with them. And then the
That's Black Dog Farm.
yeah,
Yeah.
the gentleman with Old Salt. He's
Cool. Mannix.
quite a few people have told me I should get him on as a guest,
Yeah.
and I'd love to talk to him because I grew up farming, and he's got a long history of farming, and that would be a fun
He's
conversation.
doing something really cool. Jeremy, who is my co-host, is the CFO for Old Salt.
Okay, so he's still working for him.
He's still working for Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
My family, we went to Old Salt is a vertically integrated meat company that they do all sorts of things. Cole grew up on a ranch outside of Helena in Helmville, a teeny tiny town. And that's where they hold a fairly large festival every summer. And my family went to that this summer. It was really, and talk about networking. Like you could just walk up to people and stick out your hand and say, hi, I'm Emily. And everybody I met was fascinating. They would all be like, great to meet you. My name's such and such. It was like my dream of ways to meet people. People just were engaging and fascinating people. And yeah, what else did they do? They have two restaurants. One's a burger joint. One's pretty high end. They're both in Helena, and they have direct to consumer. And now they're doing like wholesale, I think, to restaurants. And I actually just bought some Old Salt frozen burger in Town and Country.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about their restaurants.
Yeah, the idea is from my memory of my conversation with Cole, is to see if they can create like an entire vertically integrated, different regenerative meat system. And like, how can we do this? How can it be a model for something different? And it seems like, it's very cool and has a lot of momentum and all seems really hard.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to them. I would love to see if they have thoughts for that model in other lanes of farming and agriculture. But I think he said I think I listened to maybe half of that interview that you guys did with him, and it's the same thing that Matt Skoglund said, which is regenerative farming, which is a really important and cool concept to think that you're not just you're regenerating that land. And I think that's such a cool long-term strategy to.
I think about it for my own business, like in terms of, I know Lorca was in the interview you did with Lorca, she talked about ecosystems. And I think of my business as like, I live near the East Gallatin River. And so there's parts of my business that are wild like that. Like I do free sessions at the library. I do all of these independent projects where I'm just giving and gaining so much in the way of learning and relationships and community building. And that's sort of like the wild part of my business. And then there's like the little bit of land that I live on, and I'm out there till 10 p.m. pulling weeds and, in the pasture. And how do we get this pasture to last long enough that our donkeys can get through to when we have hay? And like, how much of it do you cultivate? How much of it do you leave wild? And where do we park my husband's trucks? He's got a lot of trucks and trailers. And just thinking about how much I can learn from other regenerative systems. I had a conversation with a woman who runs the Eastern Montana Regenerative Alliance a little while back, and I was just on fire after that, listening to how she is growing knowledge among ranchers throughout this vast area. And she doesn't show up and say, you should do X, Y, and Z tactics. She shows up and teaches them how to read the land. And so that's mineral cycles, that's energy from the sun, that's what's going on with different plants that live there. And she's really teaching them a different way of seeing. And okay, here we can look at this ranch that we're on right now, because she does these ranch tours on location, and what is happening on this piece of land specifically? What are the effects? And then how can we extrapolate? What can you learn for your own place? And what do you actually want to do? What works for you in this stage of business? Because it's, these transitions from, if people are using more, what they call conventional scale cropping systems or ranching over, it can be quite a transition in the business and just in the way they move. And some of that I came to through actually a conversation I had with Cole a long time ago when I was reporting on food systems, and he was starting Old Salt, and he sent me in the direction of a couple of people that really changed the way I ended up interviewing for stories in very small towns in rural Montana and central Montana. And I just learned so much from these folks who are on the land, respecting it and investing in it, and they have to make a living at it. And so, like, what can I learn for my business? How do I want to think about that when I'm working with groups of individuals or leaders or pairs of leaders? And like, how much are we giving back? How much are we reinvesting into ourselves? How much are we resting and taking care of ourselves? How much are we learning? And how do we measure what does a healthy, thriving business or life look like?
Yeah, I think that's so cool to do when you can look at the land and nature and see that parallel with your own personal or professional life. And I've done that almost unknowingly a little bit, just growing up on a farm.
Mm.
So you kind of, I think it kind of molds the way you think about things, but it's so different, one farm to the next. It's so different. And I think that parallel with one life to the next.
What from your farming what insights are powering your business today, or how do you think about it?
I mean, I think if you can figure out a way to give more than you take, you can figure out a way to um, have way more than you ever need. And that is the way I think about this podcast. This has been the best way for me to do that, is how can I give so much to the community, to the guests, to the people that listen, all that, and know that, the downstream effect of that, I may never know, but I know it's putting out value. And that, that's a way in this business that I've been able to do it and give as much back and be in a lot of ways, we're a high end chauffeur service. We have a high net worth clientele. Our services are expensive and not really economical for a lot of people. How do you own a business like that and give back to your local community and be a part of the community? And this, that's why I say I almost didn't realize that I was doing that initially, but I was, craving that connection to the community and what I'm doing. So I think that's how I do it in this company. And and then, how can this be something that's regenerative too? That it's
It,
not just a,
it takes time. That's
yeah,
the thing, to reinvest in not only your own company and your life. Like, oh, I need to take more sleep, have more sleep. Oh, that takes time. Oh, I need to go do whatever things. It takes so much time. And to then in your own company, in your community, this is a really long-term thing. And yeah, as you said, you don't necessarily know and you're just trusting. Cole talks about that in the interview we did, where he said I think they started using goats or sheep and they stopped using a certain pesticide. And it took 9 years or something for it to finally work. And that is you have to, I don't courage, buffer, like support, social supports. There's so much required, whether it's transitioning a farm or a ranch or building a business where you give back more than you take. I don't want to do it any other way. And yet, like, there's also a line where you have to take care of yourself. So I dance around that a lot of like, how do I get enough sleep so that I can do this great work? How do I, whatever, feed the human that is powering it all so that I can give more. Lorca talks about that a lot, you know?
Yeah, and that's something I think about
Yeah.
and deal with personally all the time. And
Yeah.
yeah, we need to eat, we need to be able to afford to live here and all that stuff, and that's a balance. And sometimes it's definitely swings way one way than the other, and that's one of my favorite concepts that I come back to all the time is seasons. And when you look at nature and you see the seasons, and to be a little bit more okay with what season I'm in, because
Yeah. Naming it.
maybe that's the give back season. That's where I'm putting so much in, and now is when I'm harvesting, and that you know like I
Are
don't know.
you harvesting now?
I mean, no, really, like a little bit, yeah. But the winter time is like the real
Mm-hmm.
harvest. It's just like primarily what our businesses thrived off of is the because people don't want to drive in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
so the conditions make it ideal to hire professionals with very equipped vehicles.
Yeah. I have a coach who says that like the most generous people either have like the strongest businesses or the businesses that die.
Yeah,
And
they
so it's
can.
like, what's the line there? How can you be generous and have a life and a business that's thriving?
Yeah, and it's not a balance I've mastered.
Yeah. It's fun to have the conversation.
Yeah, but the I guess the seasons is where I find a little bit more contentment with it being way one way or the other, and realizing that it's a long game. It's all a long game.
It's all a long game. Yeah. So many of us are seasonal. It's a ski town, you know?
Yeah.
My business is incredibly seasonal, different than yours, but it's pretty consistent.
So what I mean today, right now, like what are you primarily doing? What types of people are you working with and doing coaching and facilitating for?
I don't have like a sector specifically, but they're usually leaders of companies or organizations, or I actually have one who's essentially local government. And so a lot of responsibility, budget. The path forward isn't always clear. There's like, there's a lot of decisions. They're often running a team. They're usually stepping into a time of change. Someone who cares a lot about the organization, about the community. Yeah, that's usually sort of the picture of the human being. They're oftentimes really like a balance of analytical, get it done, and incredibly creative, visionary.
That's I mean, because there's all kinds of things you could say about government and politics, but it's refreshing to know if you're working with some people like that and they're thinking, I guess, thinking broader and how do I accomplish what I'm trying to do and how do I ask for help? That's that in itself, the humility to ask for help and
Mm,
seek coaching, any type of counsel is, I think that's such a valuable thing in and of itself. It's not something you'd see. There's the perception or the like the mass media presentation of politics and government, which isn't that pretty. But I think there's a lot of people in it that are really like well-meaning and trying to have some positive change.
yeah, and specifically, I work with a community bank that's been in Montana for 80 years. Um, a leader one on one who's at a really established local business, um, the Resort Tax Board in Big Sky, and I've got a learning center, nonprofit learning center right now. And yeah, they're like established businesses, but they're people who are also builders. They're like creating something new, and they're people who really want, like, they believe in their teams, and they're like, we need different tools or more tools so that we can work together better and do this thing that we're already really good at. And that's really what's the word? Like fulfilling for me to get to work with someone who wants to help their team be even better. Facilitative leader kind of a person.
I'm realizing that more and more in current times from talking to people and experience in life and business, the value of having outside counsel and
Mm.
coaching and just seeing those different, those different avenues that, speaking for myself, that I'm blind to because of my biases and it's kind of like you were speaking to, to go into the farm and see all the different ways that it could be regenerative. And coming from someone who came from a more conventional commercial farm, in a lot of ways we had a way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And you get very, those ruts are deep and you're just in them because they're smooth and that's how you function. And great intentions, but it like, I don't know, the rut that works so well becomes the rut that you're stuck into.
Yeah, what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah, yeah,
That's real.
yeah. Yeah, and the way that, the world's changing now, or just that it has in the last 35 years since I've been alive, it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely what worked even 10 years ago really doesn't work a lot of ways. But just to have someone come in, I even said this, I grew up on the farm and complained about it half the time. When people would come in that had some sort of desire to farm and didn't have that background, they had the most interesting perspective and a
Mm.
mind that was shaped so much differently.
Yeah, it's not that they're coming in to tell you something, but they might see blind spots or ask totally different questions.
And they bring a genuine interest too, because if you didn't kind of grow up doing that
Mm.
and you sought it out, that desire to really be doing that sometimes has just so much creativity.
Hmm. Have you interviewed any farmers?
Yeah, I mean Matt,
Oh, yeah.
and Matt, Matt wasn't, he was a lawyer.
Right.
Who else have I had? Yeah, another farmer that I actually worked for when I was in high school. Um, is that the only? There's quite a few.
There's so many amazing
Yeah.
people in agriculture here.
Hmm.
Be cool to get you talking to some of them.
Well, I talked with Tim and Kara with Black
Mm-hmm.
Dog, and at some point Tim will come do a podcast.
Cool.
Or Kara,
Yeah,
whoever's up for it.
they're great.
Yeah.
You just gotta track them down.
Yeah. I know where they live because
I know where they live.
Yeah.
They're just busy folks.
I lived there for a while. That's how I know
Oh,
them.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just got to know them, but yeah, more farmers. That's why I want to track down. Tell me the gentleman with Old Salt.
Cool, Minix.
Cole. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll track him down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can chat about some other ideas. Cool.
If anyone else wants to track you down, how do they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Emily Stifler Wolfe. Stifler's my middle name. There's one F in Stifler. And my website is my name, Emily Stifler Wolfe. Wolfe has an E on the end .com.
And the podcasts you did are still up.
Yeah,
and,
you can
up on
listen to
Spotify.
Food Montana. Absolutely. Yeah, you get a little sense for what it's like to sit in a room with me and Jeremy and cool stuff that people got going on in local food systems in Bozeman area mostly.
And I told you can still publish this one on there if they want to hear any more about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I wanted to do my research on you, and I was like, oh man, most of these are interviews with other people, so I'm not going to get to know as much about Emily. Mm-hmm. I listened to the full intro one, and then I listened to that one with Cole because I heard the Old Salt. I think I heard him speak a couple of years ago at Montana Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the name's been bouncing around.
Thanks for having me on. What a treat.
This was fun talking with you.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone in the community can do for you? Anything you're looking for as a business owner and a community member?
I think just reach out. I'm so interested in talking with people and finding out what they have going on. Yeah. I like to sort of stay in proximity with folks and just get to know them. And if there's ever a way to add value, we can have that conversation. But there's so much interesting stuff going on here. And yeah, keen to know about it.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This was fun. Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.